Yeah, he's an incredibly popular governor. I think it was 77% approval when leaving office. It's going to be a tough fight, though, in a very blue state. But we discussed his economic plan on the sidelines of a campaign event he had, actually right flanked by the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. And they kind of did that location. The event was all about affordability and making life more affordable for Marylanders. And so because it was by the bridge, he kind of wanted to highlight how, as governor, he actually cut tolls, he cut taxes, and was still managed to balance the budget and get a surplus.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined by economics reporter Zach Halaschak. Zach, we've seen a dip in consumer confidence. What kind of implications does that have?
Yeah, so the latest consumer confidence readings for June showed that it dipped down a little bit. It wasn't too big of a drop, but generally, over the past few months, consumer confidence hasn't been rising, and it's kind of been moving in the opposite direction, which shows that voters, consumers are kind of disappointed in how the economy's looking, how it feels for them. When they go to the grocery store, they're still experiencing these higher grocery prices. The stock market there is doing well, but they're just uncertain. And a big part of that dip came from what's called the expectations index. That's kind of like short-term expectations for the year ahead, where consumers kind of think the economy is heading. And it's actually been below a certain benchmark on the reading. It's 80, I think, for about 5 months now, which usually indicates that a recession's ahead. Right. So it's not good news for President Biden heading into the election, and it's not good for consumers who are looking for the economy to improve a little bit more to their liking, especially in regard to inflation.
So you've talked to former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan, who is running for the Senate seat in a very blue state, but he was a very popular governor. You've talked to him about his economic plans. What sort of things did you learn?
Yeah, he's an incredibly popular governor. I think it was 77% approval when leaving office. It's going to be a tough fight, though, in a very blue state. But we discussed his economic plan on the sidelines of a campaign event he had, actually right flanked by the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. And they kind of did that location. The event was all about affordability and making life more affordable for Marylanders. And so because it was by the bridge, he kind of wanted to highlight how, as governor, he actually cut tolls, he cut taxes, and was still managed to balance the budget and get a surplus. So what his big thing is, he wants to go to D.C. and kind of replicate that model of lower taxes, but a balanced budget on a national level. So we talked a lot about that, and he also discussed the need to, have some sort of talk between Republicans and Democrats about how we're going to rein in our rising debts and deficits, which is becoming a huge, huge issue heading into the 2030s when two key deadlines for Social Security and Medicaid care are set to expire. So talked about that, but it largely was about lowering taxes and making life just generally more affordable, including more affordable housing, more tax credits for education, so families can send students to school cheaper, all that sort of thing.
So if Hogan did get elected, he'd be in an interesting position because he'd be a Republican representing such a blue state, such a Democratic state. And so he might be in a position to do some coalition building that would be unusual in today's Congress.
Yeah, it almost seems like it would be taking up the mantle that Joe Manchin is leaving behind, the retiring West Virginia senator who's a Democrat, but would often vote with the Republicans. And so I think if Hogan gets elected, you're likely to see him being more in the center than either in the main of each party.
Right.
And I think you're going to see...
And he'd probably need to be if he wanted to keep getting reelected.
Sure. I don't think that if he goes to Washington, D.C. and starts voting, like Ted Cruz, that his constituents are going to reelect him. And obviously, as an elected official, you're always kind of keeping that in the back of your mind. Reelection prospects, what do my constituents want? So I think you're going to see a very purple Hogan go to D.C. if he is elected in the fall. And again, that's a big if, because it is Angela Brooks, his opponent, is polling, I think somewhere around 5 to 10 points ahead of him. So it's going to be an uphill battle for a popular governor. But again, it's a big difference when you're electing someone to governor to lead your state versus someone who's going to go vote on federal issues. Sure. in Washington, D.C. in the Senate.
Right, and we'll have to organize the organize the Senate with some more conservative members.
Yes, yeah, it'll be an interesting thing to see play out, and just another one of those key races, because Republicans are trying to gain the Senate. They haven't had it for a bit, maintain the House, but also gain the Senate. So every single Republican that they can get is a key priority right now, and that's one of the more closely watched races.
Thank you, Zach. You can read Zach and the rest of our policy team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.